All right, here's a 5-minute quick tutorial. This is for more local environment, and the goal is to teach you how you can copy out of a container and copy data in to import the workflow. This is really useful if you have a VM with n8n and you want to extract some workflow, some credentials to use it back in local or in another instance. Let's start first with creating the files and an encryption key. We're just going to take this one. This is the end file that we're going to use, and we're going to paste this encryption key. Now next we need to create the Docker compose file, which is just a way to spin up many containers at once. Here in our case, we have the encryption key that will be loaded directly with our M key and the generic time zone that we set here. In the documentation, you have a set of variables that you can use. You have all the endpoints that you need for metrics and queues and endpoint webhooks, for instance, webhook URLs, and those are all to be set here and then loaded in the environment section. Now here we added a volume that will be a two-way banding from the container to our folder structure. So we're gonna spin up the container, we'll see another file being created here. Start the stack. So the way that you start it is you type docker compose up /e means detach, meaning that we won't see the logs all the way open. Now it started. If you want to see what happens inside your stack, what you can do is type docker ps, that will show you the stack. You can also use docker ps like this, and you can see all of the stacks, all the current containers running. You can also do docker log n8n, which is the name of the container, and you can see that it's accessible. Let's create a fake account. Let's put just fake data here. And now the goal is to create just a fake workflow with some credentials to show you how we can export. I'm gonna put a set variable here, hello world, GP node as well with some credentials, and a bearer token that we're gonna create, and done. Now we have a semi-functional workflow. I'm gonna name it flow to export, and it's saved. Now if I close this window and I go back here and I open the folder, you can see that now we have a folder called data that has everything that n uses, and we can see that it uses SQLite actually in wall mode. So with this, you're able to use it, but let's try to export and reimport both flows and credentials to just explain you the mechanics if you were in a VM. So in our host machine, we're gonna create a file called backups, and then you can execute commands on your stack using this command. Here you're telling to docker compose on the n8n stack the command n8n export workflows all, and it says one workflow is exported. Now this is actually stored here. You can see that you have the workflow here, and if you format document, you can see that this is the JSON use for the workflow. Now you also have the possibility to export credentials. In the case that you didn't set out your encryption key, you can decrypt them. So now we're not going to do that. We're just going to remove this flag. What's going to happen is that you will be able to see the credentials here, see? But they're encrypted. So that can be a problem if you don't have your encryption key. So I'm going to delete this, and I'm going to execute the other command with decrypted. This is actually the command that I use the most because I have a lot of nodes, and sometimes credentials are on the server but not on another server, and it's the most important thing that I need to start. You can see that now it's decrypted, so I can just copy paste it manually if I want to test something in local, or just send it to another place. Now, if you're actually moving data from another server to another server, it's better to keep things encrypted. Now, in the case that you want to copy something that is in the container out of the container, you can do docker cp, and here we'll copy the contents of the folder backups into the backup folder in our host machine. And now we have here the credentials. Let's assume that I destroy my Docker, delete everything, the data folder, so we don't have this anymore. Check that I don't have volumes and that I don't have any container running. So I've just nuked everything. Now, if I run back in detach mode and check the logs, you can see that it's running, but I have to start again the onboarding because we deleted all the data and we don't have any flows. The goal is to be able to reimport the flows and reimport the credentials. How do we do that? So first we copy everything back to our backup folder. So you can see now in our backup we have the same folder. So now it's a little bit of mistake here. So we can move it manually. You can SSH and into your VM and log in and just move the folders by using the cp command. But basically everything needs to be in the backup folder. Now because it's in the backup folder, nothing has changed in the UI yet. Before, what we have to do is to execute the command to import credentials. Basically here again, we Docker compose exec n8n, which is the name of the stack, the name of the service, and then we execute the command n8n import credentials. Again, you can refer to the doc here. You see those are actually commands. You have n8n export word for all, and it explains you how to use it. That's the part that you see here in the command n8n import workflows. So if I do this, normally I will have my credentials imported. You can see one successful credential imported. And if I go back here, reload, start just one random flow to get access to the UI. In credentials, you can see my barrier token that is here, but it's encrypted, so we will not be able to see it. This is normal. Step number 2 is to import the flows. Let's remove the credential.json because that's not a flow. And now it's successfully imported one workflow. So now if we go back here, we can see that we have two workflows, which is the flow to export. And if I go in, we have all the credentials here set up with the barrier token, so everything is working. Now, for a production use case, what you need is a tool to really manage your deployment, because what would have happened here is that you will have to SSH into your server and you have to manage your credentials. And this is where a tool like Kamal can really help you, because you can deploy everywhere. It's the Docker compose of production and you have secret management. This is why I don't really suggest using Docker for production. It's not that it's the wrong tool. It's just that you don't have all the tooling around it to make it safe for usage and development. Probably do another tutorial to deploy on Kamal. So that's basically it. Leave me a comment if you have any questions or you have more tutorials on how to deploy n8n. See you later.